Her heartbeat was already counting down to silence. But the coldest CEO in the city refused to let fate win, because saving her wasn't his first obsession, loving her was. Stay till the end for a twist that will shatter everything you believe about destiny, and if stories that hurt, heal, and haunt your heart are your weakness, subscribe to this channel now, because this story will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. On the night the doctors whispered that Alara Wynn's heart would fail before dawn. Another quiet statistic in a ward full of dying hope. She was only 27, clutching a medical report that confirmed what had stalked her since childhood. A rare degenerative condition that would end her life by 28, the same age her mother had died clutching Alara's tiny fingers in a rain-soaked hospital corridor, and as the city outside glittered with life that would never belong to her, she signed a refusal form for further treatment, unaware that in a black glass tower across the street, Adrian Vale, the reclusive, ruthless CEO known for destroying companies and people with equal precision, was watching her live hospital feed with an intensity that terrified even himself, because Alara was not a stranger to him but the girl who had once shared her sandwich with a bleeding runaway boy 17 years ago, whispering, "You don't look scary, just lonely," a moment that had fused itself into his bones and become the quiet obsession that powered his empire, an obsession he had buried beneath billions, surveillance, and control, until fate dragged her dying image back into his sight and cracked him open like a fault line. When Adrian stormed into the hospital that night, overriding protocols with money and menace, Alara thought he was death personified come to escort her away, especially when he told her flatly, "You're not allowed to die," as if it were a corporate decision, and when she laughed weakly and asked who he thought he was, he replied, "The man who's been preparing to save you his entire life," words that sounded insane until experimental procedures were approved overnight, foreign specialists flew in under secrecy contracts, and Alara's failing heart was placed on a machine that shouldn't exist outside classified labs, yet even as her body stabilized, her spirit recoiled, because Adrian never left. He watched her sleep, memorized her heart rhythms, corrected nurses, finished her sentences, and when she accused him of playing God, his eyes darkened as he confessed that her death date had been circled on his calendar for years, that he had tracked every medical journal, every black market breakthrough, waiting for the exact moment science could defy destiny, a confession that turned gratitude into terror, because love born from obsession is a dangerous thing, and when Alara tried to escape, ripping tubes from her arms and collapsing in the stairwell, it was Adrian who caught her, shaking as he begged her to live, not for him, not for fate, but because she once saved a boy who became a monster just to earn the right to save her back. As weeks passed, mysteries surfaced. Her mother's death wasn't natural, her condition had been deliberately untreated, and Adrian's own father had been the pharmaceutical executive who buried the cure to protect profits, a sin Adrian had dismantled his empire to atone for without Alara ever knowing, and when she finally underwent the final procedure, her heart stopped for 6 minutes. 6 minutes where Adrian relived every future he'd imagined with her, only for her to wake with tears sliding silently down her temples, whispering that she had seen her mother smiling, saying, "It's your turn to live," but salvation came with a cost, because the cure shortened Adrian's life. Expectancy. He had tested it on himself first to ensure her survival, and when Alara discovered the truth, love turned into fury as she realized his obsession had always been sacrificial, not possessive. And on her 28th birthday, the age she was never meant to reach, she stood on a rooftop as dawn broke over the city, confronting a man who had stolen her death and replaced it with a fragile, terrifying future, and when she asked him why he never told her the price, Adrian smiled softly and said, "Because loving you was never about keeping you, it was about letting you live, even if I didn't get to stay." But fate, wounded and stubborn, twisted once more, because Alara's healed heart carried regenerative properties that reversed Adrian's decline, binding their lives together in a way no obsession ever could, and as they stood hand in hand, survivors of a destiny rewritten through pain, secrets, and impossible love, Alara finally understood that she hadn't been saved by obsession alone, but by a love so relentless it was willing to destroy itself just to give her one more heartbeat, one more sunrise, and a life that didn't end at 28 but began there instead.